Hello, everyone. My name's Guy Costin, and welcome to another edition of Dakota Gives. I'm so pleased to have on set in studio Sarah Laurel, who is the founder of Savage Sisters. So, welcome.
Thank you.
So thrilled to have you.
I'm very excited to be here.
Well, it's awesome. You're doing some amazing things, right? This is not an easy topic to talk about, addiction, drugs, everything. You're transforming people's lives. Could you just give us a little bit of your background and your story?
Sure. I am recovering myself. I'm a recovering woman from substance use disorder and homelessness. I kind of came in and out of treatment facilities, jail several times, and there was a trauma that happened about 4.5 years ago in Kensington where I was thrown out of a second-story window and I was left for dead. It ended up catapulting me into my recovery. I was in a wheelchair. I had to get metal put into my body so that I could learn to walk again. And in that space, I started doing a few different things to recover and addressing the trauma and things like that. So that's kind of what got me started on this road.
Gotcha. So there's a saying. I'm not a psychologist, right? But every human being, right, has trauma from their upbringing. Right, and a lot of people end up doing drugs and drinking and the whole thing to not feel those feelings. And is that kind of a consistent pattern that you've seen and kind of one of the things that's led you to recovery? And
childhood trauma is definitely a real thing. For me, I'm of the mindset that addiction is a disease, that you can be genetically predisposed, and that even before I ever put a drug or substance in my body, that my disease was just growing and waiting for me to find that thing that kind of helped me to run. For some people, it's alcohol. For some, it's heroin. For me, it started with Percocets after an injury to my arm. Wow. I think every human experiences some type of trauma, and it's all relative. I think that there is a special percentage of people like myself who just respond differently to substances, whether they have trauma or not. Now, once you're in that space, the trauma really begins.
Right. So at what point did you kind of hit rock bottom, and how did you start coming out? And then when did Savage Sisters start to enter the scene?
So I'd say my rock bottom was the ground level after I got thrown out of that window.
Gotcha.
That was pretty low for me. But when I came out, I was in a wheelchair, and I went to live in a sober living home. And it just didn't, for me at that time, I was sleeping on a blow-up mattress on a first floor, and it just wasn't a nice house, and there was all these things, and somebody gave me an opportunity to go to a house and start my own program. And because of the injuries that I had, and because of the times, 28 times I had tried to do this before, and I never kind of did it. And I had really strong women giving me different suggestions, and for the first time in my life, I was willing to take those suggestions. So I went to this house, I built this program based around what helped me stay sober, which was changing my eating habits. It was whole health management, mind, body, and spirit, holistic healing, yoga therapy, and trauma therapy. And I did all of those things, and I could see a change in myself. And then as I did that, I started inviting other women to do it with me, and it was very organic. So Savage Sisters was just, there was a need. And it was successful for me and for several other women. And then we expanded to men.
So let's go back around all the elements, the yoga, the eating, the healthy stuff, because it sounded like it's not one thing that really got you on the right track. It was a whole constellation of individual or little things that ended up having the big impact.
It was. So first things first, it was not picking up that, removing the drugs and the alcohol. And then building a firm foundation in a 12-step fellowship. In addition to that, I had my sponsor who recommended different things for me. Meditation, which I'd never been willing to do before. The yoga, which was more about mindfulness and listening to my body, and also quieting the exterior, because I was always so zoomed into it. And once I was able to zoom out and just try and quiet the within, it was like this storm was surrounding me all this time. And then after my mother harassed me for months about getting into trauma therapy, I finally went. And I started to see truths, started to become more aware, and started to understand triggers. At the same time, because of all the health issues that I was having with my injuries, I started taking vitamins, I started taking care of my body again, and I stopped drinking Monsters for breakfast, and I started eating grapes. So it was this mind, body, and spirit where I just kind of started listening to my body, and I started hearing like the internal, that like what I needed to survive. I don't know if that answers your question.
100%.
Okay.
But I love that it's not just one thing. It's a whole series of things that you have to put together to really make it work. And it sounds like, too, I've been told many, many times that it's not just, you can't do it on your own. Like, you need help. Can you talk about that a little bit and how other people helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I come from a large and very supportive family. So that was there. But there was this dynamic group of women that supported me in different ways. Certain people that were in addiction and recovery, and certain people that weren't. And every human interaction that I had, it offered me something different. They served me in a different way, whether it was just listening to me when all I wanted to do was pick up and I didn't know how to deal with it. I had a few instances in very early recovery where I almost went back out. As soon as I got the staples out of my leg, I was like, I'm gonna go out. And I reached out to a few women, and one of the women told me to lay on the ground and just ask God to keep me still. So like that moment,
Wow.
I wept on the floor, holding onto the legs of a chair. But that woman at that point, that was how she helped me that day, you know? And it was different people and my brothers helping me. It was different situations on any given day where I would reach out, and it's this huge group effort of support and resources that helps me still to this day continue the journey.
That's amazing. Walk us through how, from the floor, right, led to helping other women, right? So what was the bridge where you started saying, hey, I'm doing all this mind, body, spirit, it's working. What was the bridge to get other women enrolled?
Well, I might get emotional here, but
Please, it's all good.
I was living in this little house. It was a tiny little, it was a 2-bedroom in South Philly, and there were 2 other women living with me, and Claudia, who became my best friend. We had actually been in jail together. She came in and she was suffering, and I could tell that she was suffering. And so I was doing all of these things on my own, and I started suggesting them to her and kind of carrying her along with me. And when I needed support, she gave it to me, and vice versa. And so she started going to trauma therapy and addressing her mental health issues. A lot of us are dual diagnosis. I'm not dual diagnosis, but Claudia was, and that really helped her. We did meditation together. It's really, I mean, when I got sober, I was so scared of everything. I was just like driven by 100 forms of fear. So having somebody to pal around with me and address these fears and not feel alone was incredible. And then when I started to see her healing through it, I felt something powerful. She ended up dying from the disease because
Oh my gosh.
something happened, and she relapsed. She died last year, but
I'm so sorry.
when she lived with me at Savage Sisters, we were together every day, and she healed. She, you know, everybody has their own journey, but it started with me and Claudia, and then it was the next woman that came in, and the next woman that came in, and I lived in the house, and then it was a house full of women, and then it was 2 houses, and you know, people come and go, and that's just the nature of the disease. But I think it was successful because for those 9 months that she was sober and happy and working this program, that's an incredible space for her to have been in. The end is the end, but that was a glorious experience, I think. And it keeps me going.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then from there, Savage Sisters was born. So we do have to ask about the name. How'd you come up with the name?
So the reason it's Savage Sisters, when I was thrown out of the second story window, I was wearing a dress, and it said Savage in gold bold letters. And when I was in the hospital, I was in the ICU, and they had cut me out of the dress, but they didn't cut the words. So all I could see from my hospital bed, and I was in this very archaic hospital bed with weights holding my legs up because my hip was it was terrible. all I could see was a clear plastic bag and the gold lettering that said Savage for 12 days in the ICU. And I was like, what's happening? And then I went down to the orthopedic floor after my surgeries and I got my phone back and I Googled the word Savage and one word popped up when it showed up and it said ferocious. And I can absolutely attest that when I was using, I chased drugs and alcohol ferociously. It was my main goal in life. That was all I did, and I did it with just this drive that is indescribable. And so when I came up with Savage Sisters, the idea was we chase our recovery as ferociously as we chase the drugs. So, and Claudia and I did that together, so it means a lot to me.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. And so let's talk about, you got the first house. Do you still, and the first house is still here,
Yeah.
right? Then you got to the second house.
Yeah.
And so walk us through kind of, so the audience knows and everyone knows who's listening, what's the, we all can get a sense of it, right? But tell us about your overall mission of Savage Sisters and what you're trying to accomplish.
So for the houses,
Yeah.
the mission is to provide safe, structured, trauma-informed space for men and women to recreate their lives. That involves, like I said, the whole health management. But part of the reason that it's so unique is that some of these things are offered, but only if you have private insurance and only if you can pay an arm and a leg. Our houses offer it for free. And the yoga and the meditation and the holistic practitioner and the organic food from Whole Foods, all that stuff is free for these women, whether they're coming off of the corner in Kensington or we don't charge insurance, like we don't do that. So it's just something that like our mission is to provide them with every resource that they can tap into to help them heal everything. And that's just the houses. On top of that, we do the outreach and the street-based outreach. I would say like overall, Savage Sisters' mission is to support anyone living with or affected by substance use disorder, whether they are not ready to get sober and they're in the streets in Kensington and they need harm reduction and Narcan, or they're ready to get sober and they need trauma therapy and yoga and other women to support them and other men to do the same.
So it's not just the houses,
No.
it's the outreach as well.
The outreach is my favorite part.
What does that mean? What does that mean, outreach?
So, I don't know if you're familiar with Kensington.
No. Not saying anything's wrong with it, I'm not.
So Kensington, historically, since the 70s or before, is just known to be a hub for high crime, high drug activity. For me, I was down there just kind of living on the streets and in trap houses, and that population has increased dramatically, as well as, with the opioid epidemic hitting the city. So there are tons of homeless people or housing insecure, and there are tons of people that are actively using. Those humans are not ready to go to rehab and get sober. And the idea of doing outreach is to provide them with dignity and love while they're in that space of their journey. And I get a lot of flack sometimes because people say, oh, it's their choice and how can you support that? Because they're humans, and loving somebody at the ugliest place of their life is the hardest thing to do because you can't have a motive or intention. You're not going to get anything back. So slow the spread of infectious disease, help them have some safe place to talk about what they've been through, give them clothing, new sneakers, give them food because they're hungry, and they're not going to eat. So that's what I like to do. I have a lot of friends that, they do great. They get 5 years sober, they relapse, and then they're living in Needle Park in Kensington, McPherson Square Park. And I get to see them and just be like, hey, can I help you? Can I give you this Narcan? If you come across somebody overdosed, do you know how to use this? That's my favorite part.
That's amazing. And a Narcan is something that if you are overdosed, they can...
Yes. Narcan is it's a nasal naloxone. That's the one that we distribute. It looks just like a Flonase. You stick it up the nose and you release. But if you come across somebody who's overdosed, it can save their life. 7 out of 10 overdoses happen in the home. So we've handed out over 15,000 Narcans to communities. I give them to police officers. I give them to store owners. because you never know with this opioid crisis in Philadelphia when you're going to come across somebody that needs it. And not having oxygen to your brain for 7 minutes while you're waiting for an EMT, just carry Narcan. I'm huge about that. I think that it's so easy to carry it, and you could save somebody's life. I've saved so many people just because I carry Narcan. I Narcan people constantly.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's incredible. How many people on a sort of ongoing basis come through Savage Sisters, both at the home level? Like, do they stay permanently, or do they come through for a period of time? What's the...
So I don't know the exact number for the houses. We just recently did numbers to see, because substance use is, how do you really track success? But as far as the outreach goes, hundreds and hundreds. We do outreach constantly, and as the population comes through, we just serve them and go. We do at least 250 meals per week. But as far as the houses go, we just tallied all of the numbers through our resident contracts when they come in. And of the people that come through, 56% of them are still in long-term recovery, which to me, that's a success.
Yeah.
The national average is 32%. So we're higher than the national average. And
significantly. Congratulations.
yeah, and I think it's because a lot of the houses, we do things a little bit differently than other places. It's much more personalized and whole health oriented. People can come in, there's no specific time. I've had people come in for 2 years and then transition out, get their kids out of foster care and reunite with them, and we'll help them raise money and fill a house with furniture and get their babies. And some people come in for 6 months, get an apartment, and they're okay. Everybody's journey is different. I suggest that people live in a sober living structured environment for a year, so that it is so habitual for them to behave this way and go to meetings and follow through. I also think the first 6 months, you're really just tapping into the trauma. So you want to be surrounded by love and light and support.
Wow.
That's just my suggestion, though.
Yeah, I love it. It's extraordinary what you're doing. Tell me about the 250 meals a week, and I'd also like to know, where's your capacity? Would you like to do 500, like to do 750? Where are you in that journey?
I would love to do more.
Hey, that's why we're all here, right?
Yeah. So we go based off of what we can get from our Facebook fundraisers. We've had a few people that we've reached out to that have given us Dakota especially gave us a significant donation. But as far as the outreach goes, oh Lord, we do 250 meals. Jamie, the director of outreach, goes out on Thursday nights to do that. And then the ones that we have on Saturdays, we do the harm reduction kits, the Narcan, the food, sneakers, and all that stuff. We have a budget usually of between $500 and $1,000
a week,
a month. So we have to stretch it. We get a lot of people to donate.
Let's just slow down for a second. So 2 questions. $500 to $1,000 a month to do 1,000 meals.
We get food donated too.
You get food donated. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right.
So for a long time, we weren't able to get the food donated. So we were just doing snack packs and peanut butter and jellies and whatever we could make in mass production. But, none of our staff gets a salary. We use all the money to go into the stuff. So sometimes if we have a really good month, we'll buy book bags, and they'll get book bags too, because there's a lot of things that you want to give to people who are housing unsecured. Food's one of them, but luckily we've got people that will donate, and we've come out of pocket to just be able to give them stuff. I think, and this was hard for me to do, but I did a budget. If we could have $2,500 a month for outreach, that would significantly increase our effect on the population right now, because we would be able to get more medical kits. Those are the things we can't get donated. Nobody's going to donate that to us. So we purchase those. Alcohol swabs, Band-Aids, and all that stuff. The food comes from a place called Means Database, and it's restaurants in Philadelphia that will donate pre-made meals.
Oh, wow. That's
So, we are allowed to get 250. If we could increase that, we would have to pay for it.
Gotcha.
It's not in our budget.
Tell me about the Facebook fundraisers and how they're helping you.
That's just that's how we've paid for everything.
Really?
We had an $8,000 plumbing catastrophe during COVID, and we got $4,000 from people on Facebook.
Do you have a Facebook group?
Yeah, we have Savage Sisters Recovery. It's our
All
Facebook
right,
group.
Savage Fist Recovery. We're going to put it in the chat so everyone can come see. So Genevieve's going to put that in the chat.
And then it started out, we do fundraisers for everything. We do them every time we do an outreach. Sometimes we do them for people's scholarshiping, for housing. We have such a strong, tight-knit community of volunteers because we're all volunteers at this point. And people, if you have 100 people giving $30, it helps.
Yeah.
People can't give that much, but it's so many people that support the cause. We work with angel moms a lot, and an angel mom is somebody who's lost a child from the disease. So they'll share our Facebook. And any people that know about us, they just want to help us in any way that they can. And a lot of times we get $5 donations, but like I said, if it's a lot of people doing it, we can stretch $1.
You're doing extraordinary stuff. And so could you give an example, maybe, I know you have a lot of stories, but could you give one of how you've transformed someone's life? You already mentioned a couple, but I just want to point out what would be one example of someone you've transformed their lives.
So through housing or through outreach?
How would you do one of each?
Okay. Well, I would say there was a resident who, and I met her at the last stop, and she came to the house. She was the house manager. I believe she got 18 months sober. I can say her first name.
Yeah.
Her first name is Vicky. And while she was there, she was able to save up. We didn't charge her any rent. She just saved up. And her children were in 2 different houses in foster care in the Philadelphia neighborhood. So she was really upset about it. And she stayed sober. She saved up. They have their own house now. She got both of her kids out of the system. We did a fundraiser on Facebook for her. Gave her like $1,000 to help her out, and like furniture and stuff for her house. So that was really touching to me because she had so many hoops to jump through, and her mother had died of breast cancer. She had no support from family. And it was a glorious transformation for her and her children, to be able to be reconnected to their mom.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible what you're doing. You're literally changing people's lives, on a daily basis. It's incredible.
We give them the space. They do it. They do the work.
Right.
That's the goal.
But you're giving them the leadership as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a big deal. All right, so tell me about a transformational story from outreach.
This one might make me get emotional, but I'm going to try to keep it. I'm going to try and stay tough. I've been doing outreach in Kensington, and I lived at Frankfurt and Somerset, right in Kensington, during COVID and everything that was going on. So I would walk out my door and just do outreach. And there was a gentleman, we called him Sherm because he was a ginger maybe. But yeah, he was 2 years running. Every day I would see him and I would give him harm reduction supplies, clothing, food, shoes. I gave him a tent. I gave him a sleeping bag. He always lost everything. Every time I saw him, he needed more stuff. And just loved him. Every time I saw him, I'd pull over and I'd say, Sherm, you ready to go to rehab? No. Okay, do you need Narcan? I would never push him to do anything. I loved him. He was just a sweet kid. And I didn't know too much about his story. I just knew that he was sleeping in Needle Park, McPherson Square Park in Kensington. 2 weeks ago, I got a text message from him, and he said, I just wanted to reach out and thank you for loving me through all of that. I have 97 days sober. I'm living in Levittown in a sober home. I'd love to see you and meet you. I was in wherever he was. He said, I'm trying to find this girl. Her name's Sarah. She has purple hair. And she helped me so much when I was homeless. And he was just like, you were the only person that ever showed up and didn't try to force anything on me. You just loved me. And I would give him a big hug, sit with him, talk to him. And I connected with him. And I learned, now that he's sober, he told me he was in the Air Force. He got an injury. He got addicted. And it turned to heroin. So this is like an incredibly brave man that was in a really bad space. And just the fact that he reached out to say, like, hey, I love you for supporting me.
Wow.
In that gross space of pain, it touched me. I started crying immediately because I was looking for him for like 2 months and I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh, Where did he go? I can usually find my friends down there. But yeah, I'm going to see him tomorrow. I'm picking him up tomorrow, and
wow.
we're going to go to a meeting together. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That is a great story. So the now Savage Sisters, the purple hair and
Yeah.
the brand all tied together, which I love.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. So
Now
the
that is
hair,
branding. I just want you to know, ladies and gentlemen.
the hair's purple. 3 years ago, in 2017, we had our highest overdose rates in Philadelphia. And so I've never dyed my hair. I don't have tattoos. I don't have piercings. And so I was like, I'm dyeing my hair purple until we have a double-digit drop in overdose rates. Well, we've only increased.
Your hair's
So
still purple.
I bit myself on the foot with that. I've kept my hair purple because the work that I do, people remember me this way. When I speak in treatment centers, like that's how Sherm found me.
Yeah.
Her name's Sarah. She has purple hair. And they were like, that's Savage Sisters. So we still have not seen a decrease in overdose rates, and purple's the color for recovery. You know, I'm speaking at the International Overdose Awareness March this year, so
wow.
I might go full purple. I don't know yet, though. I don't know if I can commit to that.
When is that?
August 31st.
Oh, good. So in all likelihood, it will be a march. It will be outside. It will be together. 'Cause
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we'll be in a much better spot, hopefully, than we are today.
Hopefully.
Right, from the COVID standpoint, yeah. Well, that's great. So talk to me about how people can help. And let's talk let's talk first off just pure donations. I know it might be a simple answer, but how can people help just from a donation standpoint?
So financial contributions you
Yep.
can do on our website. We're an official 501, so we can provide like charitable contribution letters. We do have a fundraising goal. Our goal is to open 7 more houses. It costs us roughly $10,000 to open a property. So
10,000 open a property,
Mm-hmm.
and your goal is to do 7 more.
yes,
Gotcha.
there's a very increased need, and I will say really quickly, I know we're talking about fundraising, but
Yeah.
with COVID kind of starting to wind down, I believe that you're going to start seeing a lot of people, addicts and alcoholics, who have been quietly quarantined in their addiction. And now that we are coming out of this quarantine, the rehabs are going to start filling up because it's no longer going to be acceptable to be quarantined all the time. So I think we're going to see an increased need for people needing inpatient treatment and transitional living. Also, there were several houses that were shut down during COVID because they just couldn't stay open without any funding coming. So there's an increased need. I think 7 is a reasonable goal. I think it's a reasonable goal.
Nice.
So that alone is $70,000 that we're trying to work on raising.
Now, how much do you generally raise annually? What's your...
We don't, I mean, I couldn't even say right now. This would be our first full year where we're actually doing it.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. Great.
Last year, I think we raised like $12,000, but it was COVID.
Right.
And it was kind of, we were grasping at straws. But yeah, so that you can always go to the website, and if somebody wanted to make a larger financial contribution, like, oh, here's $10,000 to open another house, that's obviously huge and significant. But then if you wanted to just do smaller ones, everything could be done through the website, or you can follow us on Facebook. We also have an Amazon wish list. So the items that we distribute at our outreach, we have to buy them.
Yeah.
And it's from like chapstick, dry shampoo for the women, clean underwear and socks, sandals, sneakers, everything.
So you can go on Amazon. We'll talk about it. Can we get in the chat your wish list on Amazon?
Absolutely. It's available on our website. If you go to, there's a click down button for outreach, and then if you scroll down, it says Amazon wish list. And that has stuff for the houses as well as items for us to hand out. It has like medical supplies and just different things like that.
Good. So that's a big deal, being able to go to the website, go to Amazon wish list. You could probably get it recurring monthly if you wanted to do it on a monthly basis. Good. So that was actually my second and third questions were, from a packaging standpoint,
Yeah.
could you do something on Amazon? So you've answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to ask about the long-term, like what's your long-term plan? Obviously 7 houses, that's a pretty big deal, so that's great news.
Yeah.
Anything else that we'd want to know?
Now this is a dream, but if we could get enough funding, we want to have a mobile unit for outreach, because currently Kensington is being redeveloped. And as the real estate developers are coming in and kind of taking certain spaces, that community is going to be pushed up towards Frankfurt. So being able to follow them wherever they're because I'm only there because that's where they are. I'm there to serve them. So if I could have a van and have a mobile clinic that I could just pop the van up and like serve people wherever they end up, that would be ideal.
And what does that look like? A mobile unit, meaning like,
So
just tell us what.
my dream.
Yeah, tell us your dream. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
So my dream would be to have some kind of RV where we can have a pop-up tent where people can come up to the window and get harm reduction services. I would love to have a doctor available for people that are in need of emergency wound care, or like kind of a triage nurse if we could, because there's a lot of people that need medical help. And then also certified peer specialists to help navigate people that are interested in treatment. And like if they come to the van and they're ready for treatment, we can provide them immediate transportation and like entry into a detox if necessary. And if not, we can find them housing. Where there's not like, for my houses you have to be sober, but there's other places you can go and there's no stipulation on sobriety. It's just for emergency housing. So my goal would be to be a mobile unit that can follow our community wherever they go and give them the resources to either get sober or stay as safe as possible while they're living in that space.
Okay, so let's just make a deal here that first off we'll start to frame the dream.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's frame the dream on your website. Okay, so let's get a picture of what that would look like. What would that RV look like? What would it contain? And we always talk about in the software business, an MVP, minimum viable product. What would like step one look like? And then step two, you know what I mean, as you scale into it, so we can make that dream a reality and get some support behind it. So that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But let's start with a picture of something that like, this is the dream, you know, like the first mobile unit and what it would look like on the outside, what it would look like on the inside, and kind of what version one would look like, if you will.
I could do that. I could do that.
All right, fun stuff. So this has been amazing. Could you just do one thing for me? Just role play with me?
Yeah.
So you're looking for a grant, okay? I'm the grantee. I'm the foundation sitting on a bunch of money. I give out money, okay? What would you, I mean, I could be one of a million people, right? What would you say to me in terms of pitching me on Savage Sisters?
A pitch.
Or just however you would call me up and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
I think that Savage Sisters is providing, we're bridging the gap and providing resources to men and women that are trying to recreate their lives that are not being offered elsewhere. And we're also helping lower their overdose rates. We're helping lower the rates of diseases that are being transmitted in these communities and providing safe spaces. We have like a really unique program that is for everyone. There's no discrimination. You can be poor, you can be rich, you can be anything. And we need help to do it. I don't know, I'm not good at
Yes, you are.
pitching.
Yes, you are. You're very good. Well, Sarah Laurel, congratulations for everything
Thank
you're
you.
doing for people, the transformation you're providing to people. It's been a thrill to have you on here. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very exciting.